today we are presenting the call European Network of Fact-Checkers under the Digital Europe program. First, I would like to introduce a bit the background of this proposal, because of course it's not happening in a vacuum that the EU has launched this call. There has already been in the past and currently already also funding for fact-checking activities in the EU. So of course there's the very important infrastructure that is also funded under Digital Europe, the European Digital Media Observatory, which brings together academics, fact-checkers, and other stakeholders in the world to analyze the problem of disinformation and identify good responses. Then we did have funding for the Code of Professional Integrity for European fact-checkers, which led to the establishment of the European Fact-Checking Standards Network, which is an organization of fact-checkers that is independent from the EU and that is conducting fact-checking activities in Europe and capacity building activities. And then we have support currently running for expanding the capacity of fact-checkers in the area of climate change fact-checking. Now, with this call for proposal, we are majorly expanding support for fact-checking and capacity building in the EU, based on the political guidelines of the current Commission. So in the political guidelines of 2024, we have the ambition to create a European network of fact-checkers and make it available in all languages, and that in the context of building societal resilience and preparedness through increased digital and media literacy. Now, let's go into the details of the call. Some key facts first. We have a 5 million euro budget. And the application period will last, as similar as the other call that is going to be discussed today, until the 2nd of September this year. We expect to fund one project, and it is a grant for financial support where 100% of the costs will be reimbursed for the central consortium, and 50% of costs will be reimbursed for the third-party funding that is going to be dispersed by the consortium. We're going to go into more detail into that in a moment. And the project duration can run from 30 to 36 months. Now, the objectives. Of course, overall, we want to support the growth of a European network of fact-checkers, which will deepen the language coverage and operational capacity of fact-checking in Europe. So a very direct relationship with the political guidelines here. Then there's 7 specific objectives that the project is expected to achieve. First, we have the expansion of fact-checking capacity, and especially in member states with currently insufficient fact-checking coverage. So here again, like this ambition to expand to all languages in the EU. We have the capacity and readiness support for responding to emergency situations. So here also a concrete deliverable with regards to the output of fact-checking activities in the EU. So in moments where there is a surge in disinformation, the project is expected to have a mechanism in place that can appropriately react to that. There is the objective to provide support for fact-checkers against harassment. Here, the proposal, and we're going to see that in a moment, is expected to make a suggestion for a fact-checking protection scheme to help fact-checkers be protected from harassment campaigns and other means of attack. Then provide support and protection for fact-checkers. Sorry, we already had that. Equipping fact-checkers with state-of-the-art skills, expertise, and tools. So here more technical support action that is needed, again, in the vein of capacity building. Similarly, supporting cooperation, peer support, and exchange. This networking aspect. Then creating a European repository of fact-checks, capable of aggregating content from associated fact-checking organizations. We will see that also in more detail in a moment, but here again, the ambition is that all the fact checks in Europe can be pooled into a central infrastructure that is then also going to have additional business model opportunities for fact checks, which is also the 7th objective, where sustainable business models for fact checkers in Europe should be explored, including through the repository of fact checks. Now, how is this expected to be implemented? So there's 3 outputs that are expected to be delivered by the central consortium. So the entity that is going to submit and ultimately win this proposal. So it should implement a fact-checking protection scheme. As I mentioned earlier, the expectation here is that this scheme can offer support to fact-checkers who are target of harassment, cyber attacks, and need specific support activities such as legal protection or relocation. Building the European repository of fact checks, as mentioned, this should be a central infrastructure where that is capable of pooling fact checks from associated fact checkers and should have API capabilities that enable a structured access to those fact checks for additional use cases. And then finally, the creation of the fact-checking emergency response capacity. Here we envisioned, as I said before, that once there is a surge in disinformation, either because of a crisis situation, you could, for example, take the example of the floods in Spain last year, or an election where a specific disinformation campaign is detected, where this project should have the capacity to quickly react and mobilize resources to react to this threat. Then the second component, or the rest of the delivery of this project, is going to be by issuing grants to third parties, and actually the majority of funding is going to be dispersed to third parties. It should make up at least 60% of the grant money that is dispersed in this way. And this is to support short-term and long-term needs of the European fact-checking community for activities such as coverage expanding or meeting certification requirements. We mentioned, for example, earlier the Code of Professional Integrity of the EFCSN. That could be one of those certification requirements. Then piloting of novel technologies and LLMs for fact-checking purposes, or organization of conferences and outreach. And in the call text, you will find a number of other indicative possibilities that could be funded here. The idea is really that this funding is going to help the capacity and the expansion objective of this call for proposals, so that we do see this increase in coverage and capability in fact-checking, in the fact-checking community in the EU. Then the targeted stakeholders and the conditions. So of course, this call for proposals targets fact-checking organizations. Beyond that, of course, civil society organizations, news media, academic institutions, and commercial entities providing services which are relevant for the achievement of the call objectives can also be relevant stakeholders and part of the consortium. Then there is only one condition for the consortium that it needs to be respected to submit an application, which is that it must involve at least one independent fact-checking organization. And independence can be demonstrated by certification either by the EFCSN standard or the International Fact-Checking Network standard, which both offer certification for independence and professional integrity of fact-checkers. That was it from my side, and I'm looking forward to your questions. Thank you very much.
For the first slide, please. Okay, so this is an important action in continuity with the past, and this program aims at supporting at EU level the national child online safety activities of the network of Safer Internet Centers. In a nutshell, we expect the Safer Internet Centers, or SICs, to be a one-stop shop for reliable and age-appropriate information. The SICs provide access to a wealth of online tools, resources, and services for the general public. And in that sense, they support children and young people and those who care for them, so parents, carers, teachers, educators, and other professionals and stakeholders who deal with child online safety. This action's duration would cover 36 months, and the budget available for this topic is 42 million euro. And the action in question is fundamental, as the Safer Internet Centers, in cooperation with the big online platform or portal, create the EU hub for online child safety and are a backbone for the implementation of the Big Plus strategy at European and international level. This action is also key to support a broader policy and legal framework on child protection online when it comes to the EU priorities. So from the policy side, the Better Internet for Kids strategy, so the umbrella strategy for the safer internet activities, is the digital arm of the EU Rights of Child strategy. And in terms of the legal framework, with the entry into force of the Digital Services Act, which is a groundbreaking piece of legislation, there are certain provisions under the TSA aimed at protecting minors as well. And with some tasks under this call, the Safer Internet Centers will be asked to support the Commission in the implementation of relevant DSA obligations, but I will cover that more specifically in a moment. Maybe if I can ask for the next slide, please. So to give you some background on the Better Internet for Kids strategy, this Sun date was exactly 3 years ago, when in May 2022, the Commission published the revised version of the strategy. And our vision is to have age-appropriate digital services with every child in Europe protected, empowered, and respected online, and no one left behind. So the strategy, as you can see on the screen, is based on 3 pillars, which are safer digital experiences, digital empowerment, and youth participation. And each of the SIC or Safer Internet Centers component contributes to one of the pillars. So the hotlines and helplines act under Pillar 1, Pillar 2 covers the awareness centers activity, and Pillar 3 refers to all activity involving children's participation. If I could ask next slide, please. So in terms of scope, Safer Internet Centers typically comprise of an awareness centers, a hotline and helpline, and a youth panel. In more detail, awareness centers, they focus on raising awareness and understanding of safer internet issues and emerging trends. They also run campaigns, in order to empower children, young people, parents, carers, and teachers with skills, knowledge, and strategies to stay safe online. Then the helplines, they provide information and one-to-one advice and assistance, again, to the same target group, so children, youth, and parents, on how to deal with harmful content, conduct, and harmful contracts, which, for example, when it comes to the terms and conditions of different online services. And of course, there are the hotlines that exist to allow members of the public to report anonymously suspected illegal content found online, particularly child sexual abuse material. And they also, if the reports, if assessed to be illegal, are then passed on to the appropriate body for action, which could be an internet service provider or a law enforcement agency in the country, or a corresponding InHope association hotline. InHope being the umbrella organization for hotlines. So in line with this call, the Safer Internet Centers must be composed of an awareness center, a helpline, and preferably a hotline. And if a hotline is not part of the proposal, this absence will need to be justified. And also, I can maybe say that this is also stipulated in the call, that Safer Internet Centers that have been awarded or would be awarded a grant under this call are expected to join the InSafe network of awareness centers and helplines, as well as the InHope network of hotlines. If I could see the next slide, please. I think we can still go back maybe to the previous one, because I see maybe just I already explained in more detail or certain detail what the 3 strands are about, but maybe just also to give a bit of expectation of what what the awareness center and the other strands would expect to do. So if we look at more specifically at the awareness center, still they should also, apart from creating engaging campaigns and materials to help kids navigate online risks and encourage positive online experiences, they should also connect with children, of course, including vulnerable children. So I will make maybe a parenthesis here. So Safer Internet Centers are expected to enhance their assistance to vulnerable children, including those, for example, in situations of disability, coming from minority backgrounds, refugees, children who are in care, also LGBTQI plus individuals, and those from disadvantaged socio-economic backgrounds. This could involve providing, for example, non-formal education and training to basically bridge the digital divide for these groups and communities. What is also important for this call is that the consortium applying should also provide a youth panel to engage directly with children from the different demographic groups, including organization of regular youth participation activities. And through organized activities, I mean, of course, young people can then express their views and exchange knowledge and experiences on their use of online technologies, as well as tips on how they stay safe. And we see, I mean, as one of the pillars is the child participation and youth participation. They can, of course, we understand and we believe strongly that young people can also advise on internet safety and empowerment strategies to help create innovative resources and disseminate e-safety messages to their peers. So what the proposal should also explain well is how they will ensure, I mean, the proposal will ensure and the Safer Internet Center will ensure an adequate turnover and an open selection of participants in the youth panel. Moreover, what is also expected from the prospective applicants and prospective proposals is that they would explain how they foster dialogue and information exchange with important stakeholders. So the stakeholder community, we would understand that they include policymakers, national authorities, researchers, academics, youth, parents, carers, teachers, NGOs, and, industry representatives, international organizations, law enforcement, and other relevant experts. So really, if you wish, the Better Internet for Kids ecosystem. And what promoting dialogue means in practice is that basically every Safer Internet Center will be expected to cooperate by setting up or to continue, depending what's their current status, to run a single advisory board with the relevant national stakeholders and to actively contribute to the implementation of a European approach. And that is by sharing information, sharing good practices and resources via or with the Better Internet for Kids portal, and also by taking part in EU in events at EU level. Okay, if I could please ask for the next slide. And then coming to helplines, so they, as already mentioned shortly, they are expected to provide one-on-one support via email, phone, online chat by trained helpers for children and young people, as well as parents dealing with online issues. They also are expected to create and implement an extensive national communication strategy to raise visibility of their activity. They will develop or revise operating guidelines and then, of course, offer qualitative and quantitative feedback at the European level when it comes to detecting emerging trends in online risks and in general online situation. Can I please ask for the next slide? And then coming to the hotline strand, they of course gather the public, reports from the public regarding potential child sexual abuse material. They collaborate with each other and at international level within InHope. And connect to the secure ICCAM platform, ICCAM standing for IC Child Abuse Material, and being a software application that allows the checking of reported images and videos of suspected illegal material and their classification, and checks and exchanges across the InHope network. I can maybe just say that the European Commission also supports the maintenance of ICCAM by an identified beneficiary. But still coming back to the hotlines, they will also be expected to offer statistics and implement as well an extensive national communication strategy to raise the visibility of their activity, in addition to the core work. And of course, I mean, this is something that was already present in the past code, but due to a very high volume of CSAM online that is increasing year after year, hotlines should also propose a design that enables a high level of automation in the report handling process, so reducing manual tasks. And their automation strategy should take into account the national legal environment, of course, which sets the limits for the hotlines operations. Okay, thank you. Could I have the next slide? And then I already hinted in the beginning of this presentation, but now that we have the Digital Services Act fully in force, the centers will continue to help the Commission enforce the DSA by sharing the evidence they collect about what children and young people's experience and concerns are online. And that can be done through a few tasks and a few mechanisms. So one of them would be the early warning mechanism that I think that is already known to some of the centers. And the mechanism basically helps to signal online trends and harms occurring in the EU. This currently has the form of and we expect that it would continue to have the form of hotline and hope and awareness early warning groups, which take place every 6 weeks and are facilitated by the Better Internet for Kids platform contractor, who is also entrusted with the role of the Safer Internet Network in SAFE coordinator. Then another task under this call falls under the reporting framework, and here what is meant are the periodic helpline and hotlines reports submitted via the big platform to the European Commission on a quarterly basis usually. And another task, I mean, this one, I think in the call there's a sort of disclaimer that if sometimes, I mean, some of the centers, they include surveys and consultations and they plan it in their proposal and in their work plan. So this particular task concerns such a case. So it's not obligatory to have a survey or a consultation, but if planned, it should also consult children and young people about their views and experiences on matters such as, but this is not, an exhaustive list, such as, for example, the emerging risks to privacy, safety, and security of online platforms, in particular the very large online platforms designated under the DSA. And of course, this consultation, we would expect that it would, given the political priorities of the current Commission, that it would also include the impact of social media on children's well-being and mental health. And the questions for such a survey or such a consultation would be incorporated upon agreement with the European Commission, and of course communicated to all the grant holders during the negotiation process via HaDEA. And next slide, please. And then 2 more tasks regarding the DSA. So we would expect that there would be a mandatory annual survey on children's and young people's experience when it comes to measures taken by the platform in response to the guidelines under Article 28 of the DSA. So as most of you certainly know, the Commission has been working on the guidelines with the aim to support platforms that are accessible by minors in ensuring a high level of privacy, safety, and security for children. And this is also required by the DSA. So these guidelines will consist of a non-exhaustive list of measures that all platforms, with the exception of micro and small enterprises, can implement to protect minors using, for example, a default approach that is guided by privacy by design. So on this occasion, I can maybe also add that just yesterday, the Commission launched a targeted consultation on the draft of the guidelines on Article 28, under Article 28 of the DSA, which concern protection of minors. So the draft guidelines are open for final public feedback until the 10th of June this year. And the Commission is seeking contributions of all stakeholders, including children, parents, guardians, national authorities, online platform providers, experts. Yes, and then I can also say that when it comes to the guidelines, the publication, once the consultation is finalized and assessed, the final version of the guidelines is expected to be published by summer this year. And then the last task under the DSA would be youth panels. So as you know, under this call, the Safer Internet Centers are expected to provide a national youth panel that will have different activities. And then we expect that at least one youth panel per year would consult, or one of the activities would be to consult young people about their views and experiences on matters such as, but again, not limited to, emerging risks to privacy, safety, and security, as well as VLOGs, online platforms, and losses, so very large online search engines that are designated under the DSA, and again, the impact in line with the political priorities of social media on children's and young people well-being and mental health. I can maybe mention, because I think that was a question that was asked in the past, so maybe a bit anticipating, that every proposal should contain the task, and we would imagine that the proposal should put aside or earmark indicatively 7 to 10% of the overall budget for the tasks. For this task, given that the DSA tasks are a bit wider for this call than in the past, when the DSA was only then entering into force and it was still not very, maybe always clear what to expect. And next slide, please. So all the details on who can apply and what is expected from the prospective applicants when it comes to award criteria and so on and so far are basically specified in the call document. I think in the moment HaDEA colleagues will complement that information more. But just to remind that the participation is open to all eligible entities as established by Article 18 of the Digital Europe program. And that includes associated countries. Of course, as with any call for proposals, the award of the grant is subject to the quality of proposals submitted against the criteria stipulated in the call. So we can maybe, what can be stressed is that this action falls under a field which is subject to a continuous development, and the proposals are encouraged to go beyond the status quo, and therefore we invite all the prospective applicants to really invest time and efforts in preparing high quality proposals. Next slide, please. So if you'd wish to read or get acquainted more, even though I think that for the public today, these documents might already be quite well known, but if you'd like to read more about the policy and legal initiatives that I mentioned in this presentation, you are invited to consult displayed links. And I think having said that, I think this was the last.
Very well, and thanks so much, Maria. Really appreciate. My presentation will focus more on the step-by-step submission proposal, submission of the proposal via the Funding and Tenders portal. And I will start off with an overview of the timeline, which by now I'm sure you are all aware. So the call, Accelerating Best Use of Technologies, comprises of two topics. So there is the European Network of Fact-Checkers, which as a type of action is grant for financial support. And in terms of co-funding rate, here there is a 100% co-funding rate for the consortium, whereas there is a 50% co-funding rate for the supported third party. The overall budget allocated for this topic is that of 5 million. If we move on to the second topic, and the second topic covers the network of safer internet centers. This is the type of action is a simple grant with a co-funding rate of 50%. And the overall budget allocated for this call is that of 42 million. So next slide, please, Mark. So when it comes to the timeline, the call opened on the 15th of April with date for submission on the 2nd of September 2025 at 5 o'clock sharp. The evaluation of submitted proposals will take place between September and October. The information on the evaluation results, so both for the successful and unsuccessful proposals, will be communicated in November, and it is foreseen that the grant agreements will be signed in February 2026. And the pre-financing will be paid 30 days from entry into force of the grant agreement, with a pre-financing of 65%. So next slide, please. So where will you find the information and the point of reference for when you're preparing your proposal? The point of reference is the funding and tenders portal, whereby you will have both a copy, you can extract a copy of the call document as well to submit your proposal. So as you can see, this is a screenshot from the funding and tenders portal, and from there you can find the call itself and the two topics under this call. So once you press find the call, you enter the topic ID or the call ID, and once you search for the call ID, you will be presented with the two topics under this call. So on the first level, you will see the call on the network of safer internet centers, whereas on the second level, you will see the European network of fact-checkers topic. Next slide, Mark, please. So once you have selected the topic page, you will end up on this page where you will find all the information. So on the top left-hand side, you will find the name and the topic of the call that you're interested. And then further down on the internal navigation, there you will have a whole map of all the information on the topic itself. For example, opening and closing, the budget allocated, how to access the call document, and as well to submit your proposal.
Tony, però se uso la Ethernet da qualche altra parte devo ricambiare.
Could you kindly switch your microphone, please? Thank you. So to access the call document under the internal navigation, you have the conditions and documents tab, and once you click on that, you will land on the link to the call document. Once you click on the call document, then you will be able to extract a copy of the call document where you find all the objectives, targets, aims, and what is expected to be covered in the call in your proposal. So following is an outline of the call document, and here what I wanted to highlight is that the call document covers both topics. So in the first section of the call document under section 2, you will find the objectives and scope of both the European network of fact-checkers, as well in the second part of section 2, you will find all the information linked to the network of safer internet centers call. Following that, so the first two parts under section 2 are specific to each topic. However, as from section 3 onwards, you will find information on both calls collectively. So, for example, the budget allocated per topic, the timeline, and the eligibility criteria. If we move on to the next slide, the second half of the call document covers the evaluation and the work procedure, which I will as well cover in my presentation. And as well, you will find all the legal and financial setup for the grant agreement. So the start date and the project duration, the milestones and expected deliverables, the form of grant, and as well the maximum grant amount. So I highly encourage you that once you start preparing your proposal to look thoroughly into this whole document, because most of the information or any questions you might have, all the answers are available in this whole document. Next slide, please, Maria. So we'll move on to the submission stage. So yet again, on the funding and tenders portal, on the left-hand side in the internal navigation, you have a start submission button. And there, one point of warning is that before you start your submission, you cross-check and ensure that you are submitting the proposal under the correct topic. So if you're submitting a proposal for the European Network of Fact-Checkers, you ensure that you are submitting your proposal to that particular topic. Whereas if you're going to submit a proposal for the Network of Safer Internet Centers, you ensure that you have the relative topic chosen. So just to be careful that you are going to be submitting to the right topic. Next slide, please, Maria. So once you have selected your topic that you're going to submit your proposal to, you will start creating the proposal. And on the left-hand side, you have the deadline and the number of days until the call closes. Then you have as well the details on the topic that you're applying for, as well as a downloadable part B. On the right-hand side, on the other hand, you are requested to provide a validated PIC number. That is a participant identification code comprising of 9 digits. And this number is unique to each and every entity. With us today, we have colleagues from the Research and Executive Agency who will provide us more details on this on the participant identification code. Next slide, please, Maria. So the submission is composed of 2 parts. There is a part A and part B, which must be completed and submitted. So the part A is an online form whereby you enter the details of the consortium, whereas on the left-hand side, you have a part B, which is a downloadable zip file with a Word document. And this Word document comprises of the application form, that is the tech end, whereby you will include the technical part of your proposal. So what are the work packages, what are the work plan, the Gantt chart, the budget, and all those elements. So next slide, please. So as I mentioned, part A is an online form, and therefore you must complete the data directly into the form itself, whereas part B is a downloadable Word document. Once you have completed the Word document, which is the technical description of your proposal, you must convert this Word document into a PDF and then upload it and submit it as part of your proposal. So how to submit a complete proposal? I will go more into details of the different parts of the proposal, and part A of the application comprises of the administrative details. So under section 1, you will have you must complete the general information. The section 2, the participants and the information on the applicants and the consortium as such. Under section 3, you must complete the budget allocation per cost category and per participant within the consortium. And section 4 comprises of another question section. And this section comprises of the ethics and security issues table, which must be completed for both topics. A word of caution here is that when you have identified or ticked an ethics issues question or a security issues question, you must make a cross-reference to the part B of your proposal where you have addressed that particular element in part B of your proposal. If you do indeed select an ethics issue without completing the page number, the cross-referencing, you will get a warning, and this could cause a blocking issue when submitting your proposal. So please do ensure that once you identify any ethics or security issues, that you must complete the page number where this issue has been addressed in your part B of the proposal. Next slide, please, Maria. So part B of the application comprises of the technical part of the application, as mentioned earlier. And here the part B is made up of 4 sections, whereby you have the section 1, which covers relevance. And here you must elaborate on the objectives and activities that you plan for your project, and the contribution to long-term policy objectives and policy strategies. A word of caution here, because points 1.3 and 1.4, that is digital technology, supply chain, and financial obstacles, is not applicable for both topics. So please do write that this section is not applicable for these topics, and do not complete these 2 parts of this section, that is 1.3 and 1.4. Under section 2, you have the implementation part of the proposal, and here you must elaborate on the maturity, the implementation plan, and the efficient use of resources, and the capacity to carry out the proposed work. So that covers section 2. Section 3, on the other hand, covers the impact. So what are the expected outcomes and deliverables, the competitiveness and benefits for society. And here another word of caution is that sub-criteria 3.3, that is environmental sustainability and contribution to the European Green Deal, this is not applicable for both topics. So this section must be left completely empty and simply write not applicable. Under section 4 of the technical report, one last point, thank you. Under section 4 of the technical report, you must include the work plan, the work packages, timing, and subcontracting. So that is what your part B comprises. What is important as well is that there is a page limit of 70 pages. Any pages submitted beyond the 70 will be blanked out. So the beyond 70 pages will not be accessible or available for the experts to assess. So these pages would be not even taken into consideration. So do stick to the 70-page proposal submitted. Next slide, please. So, as indicated in the previous section, the parts to be completed are on relevance, implementation, and impact. And this is exactly a mirror image of the evaluation and award criteria. So all proposals will be assessed by external experts, external evaluators, based on these 3 criteria. So based on what you have included and elaborated under each criteria, as well under each sub-criteria. So each proposal under relevance will be assessed against the alignment with the objectives and activities, the contribution to long-term policy objectives, and then the extent. The last two sub-criteria, one on supply chain and financial obstacles, this will not be assessed. Therefore, it is key that you do not include any information on these last 2 sub-criteria, as they are not applicable for both topics. Under implementation, your project will be assessed by the experts on the maturity of the project, the soundness of implementation, and the capacity of the applicants. On a third The third award criteria is on impact, and here only 2 sub-criteria will be assessed. So the first criteria is the extent to which the project will achieve the expected outcomes, and the extent to which the project will strengthen competitiveness. The last criteria on the last sub-criteria on the European Green Deal goals, this is not applicable for both topics. So there will be no assessment on this last sub-criteria, and therefore it is key that you do not complete this section. Should you wish more information and further details, refer to the call document section 2. Next slide, please. Now, when it comes to the scoring of each and every proposal, so as I mentioned, each proposal will be assessed by experts on the sub-criteria of relevance, implementation, and impact. And the minimum score for each of these 3 criteria is that of 3 points, whereas the maximum score is that of 5. However, it is important to keep in mind that for a proposal to be considered for funding, it must fulfill the following 2 objectives. First and foremost, pass the individual award criteria threshold. That is, on each and every criteria, it must achieve a minimum of 3 scores. However, the overall score combined for the 3 criteria must add up to 10 points. So only proposals that achieve a maximum of 10 points and above will be proposed for funding. Should you wish further details, there is more information on this on section 9 of the call document. Next slide, please, Maria. So I wanted to zoom a bit more specifically on the call on network of fact checkers. The reason being that the funding for this call is it's financial support to third parties. And here there are certain elements which must be factored in and taken into consideration when you are preparing your proposal. So, as mentioned earlier, the funding rate is that of 100% for the consortium and the co-funding rate of 50% for the third party. Therefore, the proposals should foresee at least a minimum of 60% of the project's total budget cost for third parties. So, the 60% of the overall budget must be foreseen for third parties. The maximum amount of EU co-funding per third party is that of 350,000, and a third party can be awarded more than once during the implementation of the project. However, the funding must not exceed 350,000 per third party over the duration of the project. The recipients of the financial for support to third parties are required to co-finance a minimum of 50% of the total cost of the activity. Reason being that the third party will be funded 50% of the costs. Next slide, please. So, whilst completing the proposal for the network of fact checkers, it is important that you complete the following sections in Part A and Part B. So, in Part A, what is key is that under the column of financial support to third parties, that you complete the overall budget under this specific column. Next slide, please. And when it comes to Part B of the proposal, detailed activities to be carried out by the third party must be elaborated under the relevant work packages, and the distribution of budget must be detailed under the estimated budget resource table, as well as under the other cost categories. Therefore, this will provide the full picture to the evaluators to be able to assess what is being allocated to the third parties. This is only applicable to the topic of network of fact checkers. Next slide, please. So we move, we take a step forward now when it comes to the full submission of the Part A and Part B. So as I mentioned earlier, Part A entails completing the online form of the proposal, whereas the Part B is an uploadable PDF file with your technical specifications. So as you can see on the right-hand side, you must upload the technical Part B only, because the other two options, the list of previous projects, is not applicable for both topics in this case, and no other annex are being requested. So for a full submission, you must complete the Part A, upload the Part B in PDF format, and then you're ready to submit your proposal. Next slide, please. However, before submitting, please do press the validate button. Reason being that this validation button will give you a clear indication whether there are any outstanding issues that you must address before submitting. And most of the time, these warnings are blocking issues which would not allow you, unless you address them, to submit your proposal. So first and foremost, do not leave this validation process till the very last minute, given that there might be issues to be addressed, and these issues must be addressed before proceeding to submitting your proposal. So please do keep in mind to validate the information completed in Part A particularly. Next slide, please. So in terms of guidance and manuals, as we mentioned today, all the questions submitted today during this info session will be published on the Funding and Tenders portal under the topic question and answers. So should you have any questions, your first point of reference, of course, after consulting the call document, you must go on the topic question and answer to see whether a question and answer is already available for your topic. If, on the other hand, you do not find the information or you do not have an answer to the question that you have the possibility to submit your own question related to the topic. And the next slide, please, Maria. So in order to submit your question under the Get Support on the Funding and Tenders topic page, you have the possibility to submit your question via an online form. And the online form, as you can see on the right-hand side, you include your information and your question related to the topic. The reply to the question will be published on the Funding and Tenders portal as well, because all questions submitted would be useful information for applicants to have. So should you have any questions still after today's session, you have the possibility to submit your questions via this online form. Next slide, please. So apart from this question and answer format on the topic, there is quite a significant amount of manuals and step-by-step videos. Therefore, we encourage you to visit the guidance and document section on the Funding and Tenders portals, where you will find all the reference documents, online manuals, as well as step-by-step videos on your submission, details on the model grant agreement. So you will find there's quite a number of resources to be found in this section of the Funding and Tenders portal when it comes to EU funding. Next slide, please. So what are the final tips? From experience, we've seen quite a number of elements sometimes which unfortunately either do not pass the admissibility. Unfortunately, the proposal does not pass the admissibility and eligibility, or there might be issues with the submission of the proposal. Therefore, it is key that you keep in mind these tips when you come to submit your proposal. So when it comes to admissibility requirements, it is important that your Part B of the application form is readable, and that when you convert it from Word to PDF, you ensure that all the information is kept within the whole document. That is, there are no missing parts of the proposal, or there are no missing tables, as this would deem the proposal inadmissible. Moreover, you must always use the standard template form B, which is downloadable from the system, and never use any other form to submit your proposal. So do stick to the standard template form B. When it comes to the eligibility requirements, please do read carefully section 6 of the call document. And here, particularly, I would like to highlight the call on the European Network of Fact-Checkers, whereby there is a very strict consortium composition of a minimum of 3 independent applicants from at least 3 different eligible countries, and the coordinator must be based in an EU member state. And for complementary information, you are also encouraged to refer to section 2, which is the section on targeted stakeholders. And there you will have the full detailed information of what is expected from the consortium. When it comes to the call on Network of Safer Internet, there is no restrictions. And as mentioned earlier, proposals can be submitted by a mono-beneficiary or a multiple beneficiary. So there could be a consortium of 1 applicant or more than 1. The only restriction there is with the Safer Internet call is that one country will be, only one country will be funded. So there will be a funding of 1 proposal per country. Next slide, please. So ethics and securities issues table. So as mentioned earlier, these 2 parts must be completed for both topics. And basically, please do mark with great attention the relevant criteria when applicable, of course, and include the corresponding proposal page number where these issues have been addressed or how they will be addressed during the implementation of the projects. When it comes to the elaboration on compliance with ethical principles and the relevant legislation for any issues marked in the ethics form. So do please elaborate in your proposal the ethical principles, and please do quote the relevant legislation on how do you intend to address any ethical issues that you foresee. When it comes to the award criteria, take into account that the award criteria as detailed in the call document and follow the same logic in your application, as this will be the same structure that the evaluators will assess each and every proposal. The page limit is that of 70 pages, and any additional pages will be blanked out completely. And to keep in mind the deadline. So please do submit your proposals before the deadline, and not try to avoid at all costs submitting your proposal on the very last day, to avoid any disappointments that you might come across some technical issues with your proposal, or there are still outstanding issues which you must address before submission, which you might be blocked from submitting the proposal. Next slide, please. So that brings to the end my presentation on how to submit your proposal and what are the evaluation criteria and award criteria for each proposal. or Florin?
Yes, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. My name is Elin Sijimov, and today with my colleague Florin Puiu, we will tell you a little bit more about REA Central Validation Service, what we do, and yes, we'll go into details of the process that you will go through. So the presentation, as I said, we'll start with the general introduction to our tasks. We will talk about the process of registration and in which cases it is necessary, because you might already have a PIC number. Then we will go into more details once you need to get your PIC validated and your legal entity appointed representative appointed. We will elaborate on the correct channels of communications with us. My colleague Florin will explain to you the details regarding the financial capacity assessment, and at the end of the presentation you will have hyperlinks to useful guidance documents. Now we can start with the explanation of who we are in REA Central Validation Service and what we do. One of our main tasks is to verify the legal existence and the legal status of entities. What does it mean is that we need to verify that an entity is currently existing and under what legal form and other legal aspects related to the entity. We are also responsible for the appointment of the legal entity appointed representative, or the LEARs. We will go into more details a bit later on the role of the LEAR. We also validate legal changes related to entities that have already been validated. We assess universal takeovers of validated entities. These are different types of mergers which change the entity. We are also responsible for encoding bank account requests, so that you have a valid bank account in our system that you receive the funding into. We prepare the financial capacity assessment that our colleagues in the operational unit use to see the assessment of your entity. For very specific programs, we also perform ownership control assessment. And we do ex post status verification. For example, these are the SME and mid-cap status checks. But for the sake of this presentation, we will start now with the registration of your organization. On this timeline, you see the validation process overview, which starts with the registration of your entity, and once the time comes, starts the process of validation of legal data, LEAR appointment, financial capacity assessment. At the bottom of this slide, you see that the communication should happen exclusively via the participant register, and later on in the presentation you will see a dedicated slide on that. But let's go to the registration process that you need to go through. This is a screenshot from the participant register where you need to register and to obtain a PIC number. In fact, you might already have a registered PIC number. So you can first search on the portal whether your organization have a PIC number that you can use to submit your proposal, and if not, you can register a PIC number from the very beginning, from scratch. And now these are what I mentioned. You can first try to find your PIC number in the register, and if not, register a new one. But for the sake of this presentation, we are going to go through the process of registering your organization. As with any registration process on the portal, this happens via a step-by-step wizard. here in the participant register, you start with identifying your legal entity by encoding the legal name, VAT number. Then you put any relevant data related to the organization and legal information such as the legal form, etc. Then there is a step in which you appoint authorized users, where you give name and email addresses. So the self-registrant is the person who registers the PIC, who creates it, but this person can also appoint authorized users, which would provide a business continuity, because at this stage, when you are submitting your proposal, the self-registrant creates the PIC, but maybe after a couple of months, this person might be not available for one reason and another. And if you have appointed an authorized users, they would have access to the PIC number and perform the validation when the time comes. At the end of the process, the registration is completed and you obtain the participant identification code, or a PIC number, in a declared status. The declared status for you is sufficient to submit your proposal, but at a later stage, before the signature of the grant agreement, you need to also go through the validation process, and this is this you can see on the timeline. I wanted to highlight here that the validation process, LEAR appointment, and financial capacity assessment, although you saw them that they are one after the other on the timeline, they're in fact happening in parallel. So the colleagues are working on them simultaneously. The registered data that you encoded in the portal is verified by the REA Central Validation Service before the signature of the grant agreement. The advantage of this is that it's done only once when you need to sign your first grant agreement or a contract, and it is reused if you participate again in the future in different EU grants and procurement actions. We perform the validation always on the basis of the supporting documents that you have uploaded in the participant register. And we do that in accordance with the EU financial regulation and the rules on legal entity validation, LEAR appointment, and financial capacity assessment for EU grants and tenders. Please note that there is a hyperlink to these rules on legal entity validation, which are actually, if you have any questions related to the process of validation or financial capacity assessment or LEAR appointment, this is the first resource that I would recommend you to have a look at, because they're very explain very comprehensively the different processes. So once the process of validation starts, you will be you may expect that you will be requested to submit specific documents according to the legal data that you have encoded in the participant register. The first document is the legal entity form, a VAT extract or a proof of exemption, and a registration extract, which should not be older than 1 year. So as I said in the beginning, we need to verify that your entity is currently existing. So we need a recent registration extract for private law bodies. For public law bodies, these are law, decree, decision, or other type of legal document with which the entity is created. For international organization, these are the treaties. And for non-profit organization, we also request the statutes, because usually that's the place where the non-distribution of profit it's mentioned. Now we go to the next step of the LEAR appointment, which is mandatory for all the validated participants. But as again, it happens simultaneously with the legal validation and financial capacity assessment, although you see it as a next step here. So the LEAR in the single electronic data interchange area, the appointment of the LEAR is mandatory. And what is the role of the LEAR? This is the person who notifies the EU for any changes of legal data or the status of the statutes of the entity. They submit legal and financial documents if these are required. They manage also the access rights of a person in the organization to the PIC, but not at a project level. Also, the LEAR is responsible to nominate account administrators, which is again very useful for business continuity, and also they appoint the individuals who are authorized to sign contract or grant agreements and their amendment. These are the legal signatories or the L sign, and also individuals who sign financial statements. These are financial signatories or the F signs. When you have to appoint the LEAR, you may expect to be requested 3 different documents. The first one, it's the LEAR appointment letter, in which the legal representative of the entity appoints the LEAR. They also could be the same person, so the legal representative can appoint themselves as a LEAR. This letter needs to be duly signed by both the legal representative and the LEAR. We also would expect to receive a proof of identity for both persons, the legal representative and the LEAR, if they are different. And we need a proof of empowerment of the legal representative. So we need the document which states that this person in the organization is appointed to a specific role that has the rights to represent the entity and therefore to appoint the LEAR. You need to upload these documents in the participant register and keep the original LEAR appointment letter at your premises. As I mentioned in the beginning, at the bottom of this timeline, you saw that the communication is happening exclusively in the participant register. I wanted to talk about this in a separate slide because all the anything related to the legal validation, LEAR appointment, or financial capacity assessment, if you address it using the messaging functionality on the participant register, it reaches the person who is actually reviewing the documents that you have submitted. So this is the quickest channel of communication. The contact person, who could be the self-registrant or the LEAR, would receive an email notifying them about the message received in the participant register. But to reply to this message and to perform any actions, you need to go to the participant register and do it from there. Towards the end of my presentation, the part of our presentation, I wanted to go through two different scenarios. In case you have lost access to your PIC number, this could be in the first case scenario when the PIC is not valid yet, so it's in a declared status. This is, for example, when the self-registrant started at the time of submission, registered a PIC number, submitted a proposal, but after some time, for one reason or another, they have left, for example, the organization, and now you need to validate your PIC before the signature of the grant agreement, but you don't have access to this PIC. So in this case, you need to create a new PIC number in the participant register for the same entity and notify the central validation service, so us, to tell us that you don't have access to the PIC, to your original PIC number. In this case, we are going to initiate the validation of the newly created PIC number and link the old PIC number to the newly created one. And this will also automatically link your proposal. Like that, you are going to have a single PIC number that you have access to, and you can perform the validation of this PIC number. The second case scenarios is if you lose access to a PIC number that has already been validated. So you have you identify in the participant register that your entity has a PIC number that is already valid, but you don't have access to it. The LEAR is not available anymore for one reason or another. You don't know who the LEAR is. And there are no appointed account administrators, so no access to this PIC number. In this case, you need to appoint a new LEAR, and there is a special LEAR recovery procedure in place. It happens again via step-by-step wizard in which you appoint a new LEAR. So these are the two scenarios in which you can have access to your PIC number, to the PIC number of your entity again. And with this, the part of my presentation is over, and I pass the floor to my colleague Florin Puiu. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Elin, for your presentation and for introducing us into the universal participant validation. My name is Florin Puiu. I'm one of the financial evaluators, and today I'm going to present you about the financial capacity assessments. Since I'm the last speaker today, my presentation will be very short, and I started by listing our legal basis, which is composed by three main documents. The first one is the Financial Regulation 2024, which has two specific articles which state that applicants must have enough and stable sources of funding throughout the entire life of the project. The second document is a technical one, is the rules on legal entity validation, appointment, and financial capacity assessment, which was already mentioned by Elin earlier. And this document states conditions or operational aspects regarding the validation of financial capacity assessment validation. The third document is also very important because it is written specifically for the corporate proposals, and you might find interesting information in point 7, financial and operational capacity and exclusion. So while the financial regulation is the legal document which says why we have to assess the financial capacity assessment for your entity, the second and the third documents are technical documents which say how we do that. So please have a look on these documents. The financial capacity assessment is mandatory for all companies or all participants which request above 60,000 euros. The EU grant request is above 60,000 euros, is except for public bodies, and may also be requested for other beneficiaries which have business links with the assessed participants, with the assessed people. In this slide, we present you the documents that are requested to you to assess the financial capacity assessment. And these are the main accounting documents. These are the balance sheet, the profit and loss account, and the annexes to these documents, which are very important because they provide information about different accounts which are not reported in the financial statements. In case your entity is requesting more than 750,000 euros, according to the financial regulation, we have to have a higher assurance on the accounts. This assurance is provided by a financial audit report provided by an external auditor. In case your company is not big enough to be obliged to present financial audit reports, you will be asked to provide us a self-declaration on your accounts. This self-declaration is a template. You don't have to write it from scratch. You will get the text and you have to put your name, and that you will declare that your accounts are valid and that no audit was required, just in case that the financial audit will not be required at all. The process is straightforward. We ask for these documents for the last 2 years available in the official language. If you are talking about European Union languages, dated and signed. In case your company is or your reports, financial reports are written in another language different than the European Union languages, you'll be kindly asked to provide us an English translation. It doesn't have to be official, just a simple English translation to facilitate the process. For companies who have recently started their activity, new companies, startups, newly established entities, we will request the business plan because obviously these companies have not yet reported the first time their financial statements. So we will assess the future performance of the company. Once it is done, it's completed, this assessment is valid for 18 months from the closing date. What does it mean? It means that in case you apply for another action grant within this period, you will not be assessed once again. because the financial capacity assessment will be still valid based on the last reported financial statement. What happens in the financial, in the participant portal, as my colleague Ellen said earlier several times, all the communication will be through the participant portal. We will not write you emails or call you on the telephone. So here you have two dedicated tabs. The first one is the financial capacity, where you can provide us the necessary information by clicking on the big blue button on the bottom of the page. And in the tab messages, you will have the possibility to have access to our emails, to our communication messages that we will request you different information. You could provide us additional information when we request it, and so on. So having said that, our presentation is completed. Here we have a list of guidance documents which might be useful for you, and here we have the mentioned rules on the validation, the appointment, and financial capacity assessment. Please have a look, and thank you very much for your attention. In case there are questions, we are ready to reply to them now.